we are supposed to start what? Abraham, which is chapter 3. So it's faith and God's promises, Abraham, background of Abraham. Who's going to tell me? Benson, tell me the background of call of Abraham. Unajua unafikiria sikusikiri kiwa hapa. Nakusikia vizuri. Yes. Nani huyo amemsaidia jamani? You know, you're waiting for the exam, you should be able to remember these things. Umenyamaza. So it is Abraham lived with his father who? Terah, in a land called what? It's called Ur. Yeah. I usually say just Ur, but it's okay. The people of Ur were what? They worshipped many gods, so they were polytheists. Yes. Terah left Ur for Canaan with his son who? Abraham, C.R.E, and his nephew what? Lot. So on a place called Haran, Terah did what? Died. And it was Haran where God called Abraham. Before his call, Abraham was called who? Abram. Yes. And you can add many others. Why did God call Abraham? Why did God call Abraham? To reveal himself to the Israelites. To begin God's plan of saving humankind, or to begin God's work of salvation. Also, it was a new way of beginning to rescue man from sin. Also, God called Abraham to teach him the importance of faith and trust in God. Also, he called Abraham so that Abraham can be a founder of God's chosen people. Or rather, can be the father of God's chosen people. He also intended to teach mankind that God, or he himself, is merciful and forgiving God. That's why he called Abraham, in order to teach mankind that he is forgiving God. And in order to give Abraham the land of Canaan. And also he called Abraham to separate Abraham from idol worshippers and to begin the worship of one God. The call of Abraham, and this we find in Genesis chapter 12 from verse 1 to 9. Can we briefly go through? So that we can find the promises that God gave to Abraham during his call now. Felix, you are the last person to read.
Now the Lord said to Abraham, go from your country and your kindred.
God said to who?
To Abram, Go from your country and your kindred and your fathers out to the land that I will show you. And I will make you, and I will use you, and I will bless you, and make your name great, so that you will bless and bless. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse you. So I bless those who bless you, and him who curses you I will curse. And by you all the families of the earth shall bless themselves.
So Abraham went, as the Lord has told him, and Lot with him. Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran.
And Abraham took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and took their possession.
Kidogo, excuse me. How many are biology students? Raise up your hand. Biology. Inua kabisa ndio nikuhesabu. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20. 22. Wewe, nimesema sema kwa present ni 20. Nimesema wale wako saa hii ni 20 mwalimu. Hawa wanasema na hawa wawili wako wapi? Ati wako wapi? Wale ndio nini?
So the present number is?
Yaani kuna watu wako kwa degree nikifunza. Wanafanya nini?
Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions which they had gathered, and the persons that they had gotten in Haran, and they set forth to go to the land of Canaan. When they had come to the land of Canaan.
Then the Lord appeared to Abraham and said, to your descendants I will give this land. So he did that and answered to the Lord, who had appeared to him.
The promises that God gave to Abraham, that he is going to bless those who bless him and curse those who curse him. That is verse 3, right? He will make him a great nation. Abraham's name would be great. Through Abraham, all nations would be blessed. And he would give Abraham descendants and a land to do what? To dwell in. So these were the promises that were given during his call. Then we read about Abraham believed that he was going to have a son after that. But that we are not going to read because we knew that he gave birth to who? Isaac. So they were given Isaac. So that is what Sarai gave birth to. And then we are going to read about how Abraham was told to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. So we read Genesis chapter 22, verse 1 to 9, because we are usually in the exam told to narrate it.
Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering upon one of the mountains of which I shall show you. So Abraham rose early in the morning, handled his ass, and took 2 young men with him, and his son Isaac, and he cut the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place which I had shown him. On the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his son, Stay here, higher, grow younger and flourish, and come again to me.
And Abraham took the wood and the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. And he took in his hand the fire and the iron. So they met both of them together.
And Isaac said to his father Abraham, My father. And he said, Here I am.
binds both of them together.
When they came to the place of which God had spoken, Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the earth upon the wood. Then Abraham looked for the sun, and took the knife to slay his son.
But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am.
And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram, caught in a wicket in its dawn by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son.
So Abraham called the name of that place, The Lord will provide, as he said to this one day, in the mouth of the Lord shall be provided.
So we found out that it's Genesis chapter 22 from verse 1 to 14. So the Lord appeared to Abraham and told him to take his only son Isaac at Mount Moriah and sacrifice him. Yes. So he saddled his ass and took two of his servants and his son Isaac. He cut wood and burnt offering on the way. And then Isaac asked his father where the lamb of the sacrifice was, but Abraham told him that the Lord would do what? Would provide. On reaching the mountain, he built an altar. He tied his son and placed him on the altar. And then he took his knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called him and told him not to kill his son, because he had proved to God that he feared him. So immediately God provided a ram for sacrifice, and Abraham offered the ram as burnt offering. And then Abraham called the place, the Lord will do what? Will provide. So you're supposed to summarize in a few points. So what Christians can learn about God from Abraham being told to sacrifice his son is that God expects man to be obedient to him, just like the way Abraham was. Also, we have to know that God works through men of faith. That's why Christians should be faithful to who? To God. Also, God is the provider. What did he provide? A ram for sacrifice. Also, God can test one's faith. So, as a Christian, you should not fall into temptation. Also, God does not want human sacrifices, because he prevented who? Abraham from sacrificing his son. And also, God fulfilled his promises, because he provided Abraham with his son at an old what? Age. So he did not kill him. After even fulfilling his promise, he did not allow Abraham to kill him. So we also believe that God is everywhere, or is ever present. He was present where Abraham wanted to sacrifice his what? His son. So now from there we go to God's covenant with Abraham. And before we talk about it in Genesis chapter 15. Tell me, what is a covenant? What is a covenant? It is an agreement, yes, between two parties. And what are the elements of a covenant, or characteristics? Should be between two or more parties. There are promises which must be kept, right? Witnesses, signs. There should be a ceremony and a seal, yes? And you should not do what? Break it, because you will be punished, or there are consequences, right? So we read about the covenant ceremony between Abraham and God in Genesis chapter 15 or we start verse 7. Verse 7. Chapter 15, we start verse 7.
And he said to him, I am the Lord who brought you from out of the Chaldeans to give you this land to possess.
But he said, O Lord God, how am I to know that I shall possess it?
goat 3 years old, a ram 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Abraham built the house to God, cut them in half, and placed the half opposite each other in 2 rows. But it got cut half the back.
And the sun was going down. A deep sleep fell on Abram, and a great and darkness fell upon him.
Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Man of a surety that your descendants will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and will be slaves there, and they will be oppressed for 400 years. But I will bring them in the nation of Israel, and that one which shall come forth with great diligence.
As for you, son, you shall go to your father's temple. You shall be buried in a good old village.
And they shall come back here in 4th generation, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete.
When the sun had gone down and it was dark, behold, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch passed between these pieces.
On the day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, "To your descendants I give this land from the river of Egypt, the great river, the river Euphrates."
Can we reach there? So God told Abraham to bring what? A heifer, a she-goat, and a ram 3 years old, a dove, and a what? A pigeon. So he was supposed to cut the animals into halves and place them opposite each other. And then the birds were not supposed to be split. Towards evening, Abraham fell into a deep sleep and was full of fear. While he slept, God appeared to him and told him that his descendants will be strangers in a foreign land for 400 years, but they will be taken out, and that he would die in old age in peace. So after the sun had set and it was dark, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch suddenly appeared and passed through the cut animals. That day the Lord made a covenant with who? Abraham. That is what is important that you're supposed to mention. You mention what he brought, yes, how he was supposed to prepare to cut, and those that he was not supposed to cut the birds. And then you say that he fell into a deep split and what God said when he was sleeping. And then you talk about the dark smoking fire pot and the flaming torch. Remember, you are supposed to write in prose form, yes? Yes, kindly write in a paragraph, right? Don't number. Significance of Abraham's covenant with God. What is the meaning of significance? It's the what? Importance. Yes? Passing through the kcse was God showing Abraham that he would do what? He would protect him. Also, Abraham's covenant was the beginning of salvation history. That is another importance. Also, the blood of the animals sealed the covenant between God and Abraham. And during the covenant that God made promises to who? To Abraham. And also it shows that it brought a new relationship between God and man. The smoking fire pot and the flaming torch showed the presence of God. And the young animals symbolizes the holiness of God, because we believe that the young are holy. And also the pigeon and the turtle dove act as witnesses to the ceremony. They witnessed the ceremony. So when we come back tomorrow, we are going to talk about characteristics of God's covenant with Abraham. Like, for example, it was unconditional. There were promises that later God fulfilled. There was also an outward side of the covenant, and it was sealed through the sacrifices of the animals and the birds. And it was a binding, and it was initiated by God. And it was voluntary, because Abraham was not forced to make the covenant or to go into covenant with who? With God.